Welcome to this edition of Futurartist Records Presents. Joining me today is a gentleman who is a speaker, a writer, a minister, and a performer. Today he's come in to talk about his book, Power for Life. Futurartist Records presents Dr. David Preston Sharp. David, thanks for coming in today.
Thank you, Michael. It's good to be here.
You've noticed probably that I introduced you with 4 titles, and you probably have others that we could add to that. But when we talked the other day, you said you've gotten it down to 2 words. So why don't you tell us what those 2 words are, and then tell us a little bit about who you are and what your journey's been.
Yeah, I say that I'm a life guide, and basically that means I've lived long enough to make many mistakes, and learn from them, and help other people going through this journey of life. Really, I'm a cheerleader of life. Messages like you can do it, don't give up, it's worth it, keep going. And those are important messages. I think people need cheerleaders in life, like teams have cheerleaders. I think every person should have someone in their life that is like a cheerleader for them. So a life guide, someone that says, you know, I can help you keep moving forward in your life to become what you're meant to be.
Right.
I was born in Denver, and we eventually migrated to Atlanta, Georgia. My father became a minister from Denver, Colorado, and took us to college and then seminary with him. So at 6 years old, I left Denver. But it was on the way from Denver to Dallas that was really my first moment of awakening of what this life is, because I had never really thought about anything much except I'm David, the son of John and Annie Sharp.
Right.
But on the way to Dallas, we were not served in a restaurant, and it was my introduction to racism, which I didn't understand.
Sure.
My father had to explain there were people that didn't like us because of our skin color, and I was a smart kid, and I wrote my first poem. It was a 2-line poem. It was, "Racism is no fun." And to think, for me, it's just begun. So even then, I became aware I lost some of my innocence.
Right, yeah.
Which really is a seminal point in my lifelong journey of understanding the world that we're born into and what we can be in this world where people label you or want you to be something that they want you to be. And in the process, qualities like strength have become a foremost word that I use in my work. Just the strength to keep going, the strength to love, even the strength to be who you are, the strength to. I have a book called "I'm a Black Man, Who Are You" that came out in 2012, and really it's a culmination of not only accepting the label, but then being able to let go of it.
Right.
And be who I am.
Yeah.
So my mother was a tap dancer and singer. She's 84 years old, still going.
That's awesome.
Dad was a Presbyterian minister. So I got religion and the arts growing up in the house. And so I lived that out. I am those things that you said in the introduction, you know, a minister, Presbyterian minister, singer, songwriter, composer, tap dancer, actor. But really, it's just one thing. And that is, I'm a teacher. And I use the arts to teach people about life. So, life guide.
There you go. That's great. That's great. And we spent a fair amount of time, not too long ago, talking about lots of these things. And it's fascinating how they all tie together, and we're going to dive into some of that. Okay. So how did you get to come to this path, the path that you're on now? Was it that moment when you wrote the poem, or did you just stumble onto it? Was it because of what you were surrounded by?
You know, it's a process. It's a process of recognizing as you live your life. So, you know, at 6 years old, did I know I was a poet? No. At 14, I remember a sermon that our pastor preached to us, African American youth, and he says, God made you who you are, but you have to find the blessing in it yourself.
Ah, interesting. Yeah.
And I never forgot that for some reason. You know, life goes on. Yeah. So at 18, I knew that I wanted to spend my life giving positive messages in life. I'm the son of a minister.
Right.
I saw what powerfully positive messages, whether they're religious or motivational or inspirational, can do in people's life. They can change lives. And inspiration moves people from one emotion to another. And if the inspiration comes at the right moment, it can change your path.
Yes.
It can spur you forward to becoming your best self, and that's what I try to do. I try to continually become my best self, and that's what I help people do.
You kind of answered this next one a little bit already. What was your aha moment, and what changed and how when you decided, okay, this is where I'm going now?
Yeah, this is a funny story, actually. I've had several aha moments, one at 6, again, one at 14. But at 18, I was not sure what I wanted to do. I was a senior in high school, and I put, Spanish and physical education because I was a good athlete, and I loved languages. But one night I was watching television, and I saw this famous brother-sister act, and they were singing, and I thought, my sister and I could do that. And I called her up and I said, hey, you know what, we could be in show business. I'd never thought about show business as a career living in Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah.
Even though I'd been in plays, even though I'd composed music, even though I sang. But I never thought of it as a career move until that moment. And in that moment, some things came together. Oh, I can inspire people through the arts in a bigger arena. And it changed. It sort of like a whole dimension opened up that I had not thought about. So I spent some days contemplating this decision. You know, I meditated, I spoke to my higher power, and I was affirmed on the inside that this was a direction of yes, go in this direction. So I ended up going to the University of Southern California, becoming a drama major.
Okay.
And I wanted to play roles we had not seen ourselves play, in an effort to inspire people to be all they can be. And again, that's really the thrust of my work, to help people become all they can be.
Yeah.
We live in a society that wants you to do one or two things, and I grew up being able to do all the things. My parents let me be my full self. And
that's cool.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't have that. Yeah.
That's right. And so early on, I give my parents great credit for allowing me to fully express myself. And I want to help people do that same thing. That's what I do.
Yeah. What has been, through all of this, because we could have you back for a couple of shows, talk about some of the different directions you've gone, but through all of this, what's been your biggest struggle?
Yeah. To remain faithful in being who I am, in a world that says you can't do all of those things and do them effectively well. In other words, you can be a jack of all trades, but I have learned to say, you know, I've learned that I'm a master of being a jack of all trades.
Oh, interesting.
And again, it's only one thing. It's teaching.
Right.
So whether I'm dancing, whether I'm tap dancing, whether I'm preaching a sermon, whether I'm performing or as an actor or writing in this book, it's all one thing, and it's teaching people that they can be who they're meant to be from the inside out, not from the outside in, where the world wants to put a label on you.
Yeah.
But fully express yourself. And it doesn't mean you have to be as good at one thing as another thing as another thing. It just means it's like an organ, you know, it has different things you can pull out to blend to create a sound. Well, the sound of your life is who you are fully, and not cutting anything out.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So this book, Power for Life, is a book that helps people become and keep becoming.
Cool. You're doing really well on answering the question before I answer it. If you were to dial it into just a handful of sentences, what is it that you do?
Yeah, I help people grow spiritually. And growing spiritually means looking at yourself consciously. And it means making a decision to become more of what you can be.
Right.
It means asking yourself the question, what can I still become? How good can I be? How more loving can I be? So I help people connect with these gifts: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control. Those qualities, when we live them out, change not only us, but change the world around us, because
Right.
we become different in the world. And I like to spell power, COMMITment, commitment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the commitment to become and still become gives one the power to change.
Gotcha.
So this
Yeah,
book, Power
yeah,
for Life, is not only power for your life, but for all your life, power for life. And so I met a couple of women when I was pastoring a church. I went to a senior citizens home. One was 90, one was 80. They were living together.
Okay.
I asked them, what's it like living with each other? And the 90-year-old woman said, well, you know, this woman can be immature sometimes.
Right.
I started laughing because it made me realize
Yeah.
that no matter how old we are, we can still keep maturing.
Yes. Yes. Well, and having kind of just scanned through this book, because we connected kind of late, is I noticed that it helps you reset every day. Every day you recommit, and it's supporting that ability and awareness of recommitting every day so that you can keep going.
Yes.
Do you ever have anybody that you work with that says, well, I think I am who I need to be, and I just want to get your opinion or your insight? And then what do you say to something like that?
There are people that don't want to grow. There are people that are happy where they are.
Yeah.
That's a decision we can make. We can stay where you are.
Yeah.
And there are many, many good people who are living great lives. And so all I'm saying is that if you want to keep growing, because there are places we can keep growing into.
Yeah.
And if you can be honest with yourself, and I've had to be honest with myself. This book came about because of a spiritual practice I was doing with my wife. And you ask a question with your right hand, you answer it with your left hand, and the left hand accesses the right brain, and it's more intuitive. And the things that were coming out were like, I would maybe never have told myself.
Right. Right.
But then you look at it and you go, oh, so this is where I need to grow.
Gotcha.
So it became a spiritual practice for me, and the outgrowth of it is that it can be a spiritual practice for others. So I say to people, if you're ready, if you want to, this book can help you keep waking up to yourself.
Gotcha.
Keep
Yeah.
waking up to the areas in your life where you need to grow. And again, it culminates in more peace in your life, more joy, more light coming out of you. And that light literally affects people. I've seen it over and over and over.
Yeah,
I've seen people who were mean to me, personally mean to me, and I, in the moment, decided to live my light instead of answering them with the same energy they were giving me.
Right.
And they changed right in front of my eyes. And in the world we live in, we need as much light
Yes.
as we can get out
Yeah.
there.
How long did it take you to get to where you were aware that you could do that on the fly like that? Or is that something you have to constantly work on to be aware of?
Well, I think it was a situation where my mother would constantly tell us, don't let the world get to you. You know, if they don't like you, that's on them.
Gotcha.
You be who you are.
Yeah.
And it was my father, the minister, who said, you know, don't let the world make you something you don't want to be.
Right.
And he showed me, both of my parents showed me in the moment. We were the first African-American family at my father's seminary. I was the first African-American along with my sister in our elementary school. We got a lot of the stuff you get in the South growing up in that civil rights. And my father worked with Reverend Dr. King.
Yeah.
And I actually went to the funeral when I was 12. So I grew up in that energy of social justice and dignity, claiming your own dignity. And that's what the book, I'm a Black Man, Who Are You? is about. It's claiming your own beauty and dignity and walking in it no matter what the world says. So how old was I? By osmosis, it's always been there.
Yeah.
I think by the time I got to college, I became aware that I could push it out into the world.
Gotcha.
It was my friends. In fact, my friends, none of my show business friends were surprised when I became a minister because they saw it in me from when I was performing. I would be the one that prayed before we went on stage, mostly because I was afraid.
Right. Well, I totally get that.
We better
need all the help
so
we
you
can
go
get.
out there with a little confidence and faith, and if you make a mistake, you know, it's not my fault.
Right.
You blame it all. So So, but on a more serious level, I began to really see myself how love affects other people.
Right.
And, turning the other cheek and all those messages we get in some form when you're in good company and hearing good messages of life. It doesn't matter what religion you're
Right.
part of. Then to live them out consciously, that's the key.
Right.
Consciously.
Yeah.
Then you can begin to see how everyone affects each other. We all affect each other.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So I can't control your reaction, but I can control what I bring out.
Right. Yeah. That kind of answers through the last couple of questions, kind of the purpose of the book, but how does the book work?
It sort of works like a diamond. There are 365 daily inspirational guidances.
Okay.
60% of those guidances have an evening reflection. So I would live the guidance and then write about how I did living that day's guidance.
Yeah.
So the book works slowly. It's, like you said earlier, it's an everyday deal.
Yeah.
And inside each one of those guidances, a single sentence can be the key for that day for you. I've lived these guidances for a day and I go, oh, I'm doing really great.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm not living that sentence really well.
Right.
Oh, I'm not really doing that. And then, so I would pull it out 4 or 5 times a day to see how I was doing.
Oh, interesting.
So in that way, it's sort of a slow look, watching yourself live. And we can do that. We can watch ourselves live. And that's how we make changes. So when the next time that happens in the moment, you are aware of what you did before, and you stop and you pause and you go, you make a different response.
Right.
That's where growth happens. Learning is an enduring change in behavior. So as a teacher, this book gives you tools to watch yourself live day by day. And so you can go through the whole book, and it's a growth period. But if you start in the middle of the book is laid out in days, not months.
I was going to mention that because that makes this really unique.
So if you buy it in the middle of the year, you can start at your day one.
Yeah.
And again, so it doesn't matter where you start because the growth, you get the book when you're supposed to.
Right.
And you start wherever you want to.
Yeah.
And if you want to read the book as a novel, you can do that too. And then I'm sure there are places you want to stop. I've lived one of these guidances for a week or several days.
So you can really dive into what it's saying to you and make it work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're also a performer. You do all these other things. Mm-hmm. And we had quite a day the other day and talked about a lot of things. But how does this tie into the arts?
I actually have a card. This is one of my business cards, and on the back, and you'll see what I mean at the end. This is what I do: to explore and celebrate the human journey, honor its triumphs and challenges, and spark new breakthroughs in the art of living.
There you go.
So the art of living is even an art. Mm-hmm. And so the first guidance in this book talks about dancing with God.
Yes.
It's a dance. You move, the divine moves. You move, the Creator moves. And you can see the grace flowing through your day or through a moment.
Right.
I've had many moments where somebody gets on my last nerve.
Right.
And then I have to make the choice in the moment, breathe, make a different choice, make a loving choice, let my light shine, be who I really want to be, instead of, responding as most of the world responds.
Right. How is this applied, for example, you're on set.
Yeah.
Or you're getting ready to go on stage. How then does this apply to that type of art?
It sort of reminds me of the full thrust of my whole life. Mm-hmm. So if I'm a life guide, and one of the things that I know that I do is inspire people, that's my desire. And that's been a lifelong thing. I've been inspired by many people.
Sure.
in different art forms. I've been inspired by just the mundane, ordinary things in life. Watching some strangers smile at each other in the grocery line, or
Yeah.
someone helping another walk across the street, or just a random act of kindness. Those things are inspiring to me. So inspiration is what moves me along, and that's what I try to give out in my life.
So, I mean, as a performer, that's you. I mean, you inspire a lot just through your performance. So then, do you feel like using these for your guidelines and for you to contemplate ends up feeding that performance more, or changing maybe the way the performance is presented?
Sure thing. I became a minister because I didn't like the way I felt when I stepped off the stage.
Gotcha.
I had proven to myself that I could inspire people on a stage.
Right.
The arts inspires people.
Yeah.
When I stepped off of the stage, when I was younger, I was talking to many people who wanted to know more about me and my work, and they had a lot of questions because, again, my work on the stage was to inspire people. When I
Right.
stepped off, I couldn't answer the questions. I didn't have enough skills or knowledge
Right.
to help people with some deep challenges they were facing.
Right.
And because I had seen my father's work, I realized I wanted to get more stuff to help
Right.
people. So there was one night I was performing, and I let everyone leave, and I went back on stage, and I presented myself as a performer, and then I turned around as a minister.
Oh, okay.
And I did that a few times.
Yeah.
It became very clear that I needed to step off that stage and go to school and
Gotcha.
get some more skill, education, knowledge, so that I could be of service once I step off of the stage.
Right.
So
right.
now I do.
So you can tie the two together and carry on once you're not
and
behind the mic.
And it goes right back to my home, right? Religion and the arts.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was, I mean, we're all born into our families and born into the society or cultures. What I got naturally growing up is still playing out in my life.
Right. Yeah.
And not because it has to. I could have totally done something
Sure.
totally opposite. But I saw the good that both arts and religion. When I was 24 years old, for instance, I stopped tap dancing because I realized I fit the stereotype.
Right. Right. Yeah. We talked about how strange how that happens, and sometimes you don't realize it.
Yeah, when I was 24, I realized a lot of the arts were stereotypical, singing and dancing. And I was like, oh no. So I took some time off, and I did a lot of research, and I came to, even religion, I came to understand that those things are really good things. The arts are really good things. Sports are really good things. The things that, the world put on me as a stereotype. It's like, wait, those things are really good.
Right.
So again, it was like, I'm not going to let the world make me something I don't want to be. And I'm going to claim the power and the goodness of the arts, of tap dancing, of singing, of performing, of being a minister, of helping people in life. And so making that choice was also a choice of, I don't know if I'm going to get rich or famous.
Right. Right. Yeah.
But that shouldn't be the goal, and I had to come to terms with that path.
Yeah.
Is about servanthood, selfless service, and helping people brings what it brings.
Right,
Doing it to
right.
the best of your ability gives you peace. My father, I remember my father was in his 50s, and he had a heart surgery, and I asked him, Dad, if you don't make it, are you going to be okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just
yeah.
a strange question.
Yeah.
But my dad being a minister, we talk like that all the time. And he started laughing while he's on the gurney. And he said, yeah, Dave, if I don't make it, I'll be all right. And I said, how do you know? And he said, because I know that I've lived my life's purpose. And I broke down and cried right there.
Yeah.
Because to say that is what I wanted to be able to say.
Right. Right. Right.
And now I can say it.
Yeah.
I am living my life's purpose.
I'm going to pull this one out of the hat here. Having said that, and having a lot of the entertainment friends that you have,
Yeah.
and maybe some of them, consider religion, some don't.
Mm-hmm.
How many of them have found emptiness in the arts without thinking of the things that you think of and how they interconnect?
Well,
And how many were you able to go, well, try this, and being
listen,
able to make that fulfillment?
that's a really great question. And most of my close friends are like me.
Okay, that's awesome.
I
That's probably not normal.
I think you attract into your life what you are.
Okay.
So my friends are about light, love, becoming better, giving out good messages. Doesn't mean that they all go to church or label themselves as something or another thing.
Right.
But they all are about love and light. And that's probably why we're friends.
Sure.
And my closest friends. And I have one friend who's the artistic life has brought him around to identifying himself as a spiritual teacher. And we had a big laugh about that. So I think that there is a purpose for the friends that I have, for the family I grew up in, for my whole life. It's part of a continuum. I'm standing on the shoulders, not only of my father, but his grandfather was a minister. I mean, and being in that civil rights movement, I'm standing on all of those shoulders.
Right.
So I'm not doing this by myself at all. And the things I've learned from mom, dad, things I've learned on my own, and having kids, being married, the things I've learned from marriage, from having kids. My kids are my chief spiritual teachers.
Right, right, yeah.
Unfortunately, I lost my wife some time ago. I got married later. But in that time of loss and just living life with my kids and the grief and the growth and the acceptance and the lack of acceptance, all of those really heavy life things, again, were swirling. And inside of that, it allowed me to analyze where I was in life and where I wanted to go. And I was pastoring a church at that time, and I was also teaching in a school. And I made a decision. I said, I want to get back more in the arts proper.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up directing a show, writing the music for the show, and later on I ended up acting in this musical. I was able to leave the church that I was serving at a good time, and I actually left that church to take care of my wife. So there were things happening there that were about ripening, that were about growth, that were about learning some hard things, some more hard things, which, I say God works all things for good.
Yeah.
And the good in this is, people that are going through lots of life struggles need help. They don't always know where to go. They don't always go to those institutions that, we know you can get some help. And so as a coach, as a life guide, I have a practice where people can come and talk to me, sit with me, and we can talk things through. Yeah. And, it's different from being a life coach. It's different from being a psychologist.
Right.
Right. I use my life experience as a pastor, as a minister. I've talked to lots of people, and there are things that can be had in a safe environment that help people come to terms, come to peace, come to some form of resolve that allows them to take a deep breath and live the goodness of life while honoring the challenges and the heartbreaks and the tragedies and the loss and all of that. Yeah.
Does that how do the arts and the spirituality come together then to create the world that we're in? And I guess not for everybody as a conglomerate, but for the world that you're in, for the world that I'm in.
Yeah, I when I was in college, I learned that the arts, show business, show business.
Yeah, yeah.
It came out of Greek culture, to show people to themselves. So, in its essence, the arts is already a spiritual endeavor to show people to themselves. That's what movies still do.
Right.
The best movies, the most touching music gets to us. It makes us be honest. So we show ourselves to ourselves.
Yeah.
So, for me, the arts and spirituality are two sides of the same coin. And they intertwine all the time. So we're sitting here connecting in the art of conversation.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
Again, as my business card showed, the art of living is my father used to say, be big, and being big is hard.
Yes, it is.
Because what he meant was be loving in the moment.
Yeah.
I saw
Yeah.
my father on the streets of New York get basically, cussed out by this lady, and he responded with kindness, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
Yeah.
And he explained to me that we have a choice at every moment,
Yeah.
and that he had to decide what kind of man he was going to be in the moment.
Right.
That's different from the big choice he made earlier to be a man of God as opposed to a militant.
Right.
Those are life. And so at certain points, I've had to make those same decisions. What kind of man am I going to be? And the mistakes that I've made, the failings, and failure is part of life. And some people don't do things because they don't want to fail.
Right.
But I remember writing a poem one time called The Person Who Knows How to Fail is a success already because they know they can get back up again.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
people are afraid to move forward. People are afraid to become what they feel inside.
Right. Yeah.
So I help people address those fears. I help people move forward, so I can be an accountable person if they want to move forward. It helps to have someone to check in with.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
We all want to know that we want to be heard, we want to be seen, we want to be affirmed, and we all want to sort of know we're okay. It's
Yeah.
okay to be who I am.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, having said that, with affirmation, and I know that it can be two sides of prevalence in the entertainment industry. The big egos and the people who are afraid to do anything until they actually step on the stage.
Yeah.
So when you're guiding people, and those are both really emotionally powerful things. So when you're helping guide people, how do you present that without it becoming just an emotional flash, where they go, "Oh, thank you," and then 5 minutes later it's gone?
Right. It goes back to having accountability. It goes back to being there for someone. Inspiration is like a breath, and you get inspired, and then it may lead you to act.
Mm-hmm.
But then what happens is to keep going, to keep the fire going, to keep the inspiration going, to have a plan. So it helps to have a plan. So I help people get a plan.
Gotcha.
You want to become this. You're 50 years old and you still have this dream of doing something. You're 30 years old or 20 years old. I deal with people of all ages, people in their 20s who are still finding themselves really for the first time.
Right.
What's my groove? What's my path? People in their 30s who are wondering, okay, I've tried to make money, but that's not really. I'm learning that's not what life is about. Now what do I want to do with it? And, people in their 40s and 50s who are, in the middle of life who are wondering, what am I going to do when I get older? Do I retire? And what is it? And so what I do is help people come up with a vision. And vision without action is just dreaming.
Right.
But action without vision is a waste of time, really. So I help people come with how do you see yourself? Where do you see yourself? How can we make that happen?
Right.
But I had to do that too. I had to learn to do that. Like, how do I make this happen?
Yeah.
And it goes back to power, spelled commitment.
Yeah.
You recognize where you want to go in life. And it doesn't matter where it is. I want to be a cook. I want to be, I want to be whatever it is you want to be. Or I want to be better. I want to be more patient. I want to be a better friend.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be accomplishing something in the world. It could be within yourself. I want to be a better person at apologizing.
Right. Yeah.
But those things translate into they have a domino effect. They get, and then you want to get better at other things because one thing reveals another.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
So again, it helps to have a vision. My vision, again, overall, is to be a servant, is to help people find joy, to be joyful myself. I am joyful, even in the worst situations. I have noticed there's a joy. I think I was born with it, and it comes from recognizing who you are.
Yeah.
And to recognize who you are means to dive into your inner soul and do that exploration. So that's what I help people do, and that's
cool.
the most fun for me.
Yeah, that's cool. So what can people expect when they meet you?
They can,
and I suppose maybe it depends on if they bump into you on the street compared to if they're coming up to you after a show, or do you think it's always the same?
well, I'm always the same. So I've had people come up to me. I mean, I don't tell this story very often at all. I've had people come up to me and said, "I don't know you, but I see a light around you." What is that? And I know what it is.
Yeah.
And then I can start a conversation.
Yeah.
So I saw my father become brighter. So what I'm talking about, the light within, is real.
Right.
And it can exude, radiate from you. So that question again, just
What can people expect when
yeah.
they meet you?
So they can expect somehow to connect with spirit,
Okay.
because I try to stay conscious of that. They can expect to be in an energy of joy, and I allow people to express themselves fully. I allow people a place of peace. I try to be a place of peace for people. So when you come to me, you can expect connection to spirit. You can expect joy. You can expect a place of peace, somewhere that gives you the space to be who you really are and to explore yourself with me, because I don't label. I try not to.
Sure.
I've gotten much, much better in almost all situations, and I am a cheerleader. I already love you because, it's rare to be born a human being.
Right.
As many people as there are on this planet and have been, it's still rare to be born a human being.
Yeah.
So to me, we're all ennobled, we're all created by our Creator, and I like to say that what you are is God's gift to you,
Right.
but who you become is your gift back to the Creator.
Yeah.
So who have you become? And that's not really about what did you achieve in your business or your work.
Right.
I could be almost anything and still become. I was 40 years old when I realized I've become the man I set out to be. But it was a different road.
Do you feel like all of these things that you now use to help guide other people affect your performance? You're on stage performing, whether it's dancing or singing or whatever.
It does. Your kids are, like I said, my kids are my life teachers in many ways.
Right.
So I remember one of my grown children saying, "Dad, I've never heard a love song.
Right.
You don't write pop songs." I'm like, "I've written pop songs," but again, when I'm swimming in my own ocean, I come out with inspirational materials. To me, they are love songs about life.
Right.
I almost died when I was 30 years old. I almost drowned. I survived, but I had one of those mystical experiences where I saw myself leaving, and I fought to not leave. And I literally heard a voice saying, "David, you almost died. You haven't written." So when I was 18, I got my first mystical experience. It was about show business, but it was writing, not performing.
Gotcha.
But I wanted to perform, so I sort of pushed that writing thing aside and loved performing. So, the higher power, Creator, is very polite. We'll let you do what you want to do. You have free will.
Yeah.
But sometimes there are messages that come through in a powerful way, and if you can recognize them, they can help guide your life. So when I almost drowned, this message came: "You haven't written." And I was like, whoa. For the next 2 years, I wrote. What I didn't know was that when I did what I was deeply called to do, I got to perform
Gotcha.
what
Yeah.
I'd written.
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
Yeah.
So there is a way to access inner guidance. That's what I help people access.
Yeah.
So
And so it can open up all those things that you desire outside of your inner drive.
Yeah.
Like pushing you to write and not allowing you to perform, which is what you enjoy doing.
Right. Well, and then I suppose that when I was 30, I wrote my first serious poem while I was in seminary. And I thought, oh man, I don't want to be a poet. Poets don't make any money.
Right.
Well, and I was like, really? You're in seminary. You're going to be a minister. You're not going to make much money.
Right.
So it was kind of funny. But I wrote this poem, I'm a Black Man, Who Are You?
Mm-hmm.
You know, soon after seminary. Again, I was exposed to racism. And it just like, man, is this going to follow me? And really the question is, what are you going to do about it inside?
Mm.
So again, I sat down by myself one day and I thought, I literally said out loud in my own living room, I don't want to be black anymore. And I heard this voice, and it sort of went back to the 14-year-old kid that heard the minister say, God made you who you are now, you have to find the blessing in it.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
I was like, so sometimes it takes a decade or decades
Right.
for things to sort of come to fruition. We live in an instant world, things
Yeah.
now. I can be something I want to be now, or at least soon. But no,
Right.
sometimes it takes decades to reach a certain point where things come together.
Yeah.
And at that point, I wrote this poem, I'm a Black Man, Who Are You? Later, it morphed into a one-man show.
Okay.
And later, it morphed into this book.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's been an evolution of myself, of how to be who you are in the world, how to see yourself.
But it's allowed you to help other people. It's allowed you to perform. It's allowed
That's
you
right.
to do all those things.
That's right.
Kind of fully encompass.
In fact, not being in LA or in Hollywood, and I lived in Hollywood for some time, I'm actually doing a lot more of the arts and performing than if I was living in LA,
Interesting.
as some of my friends are.
Yeah.
So, it goes back to this dance,
Yeah.
Sort of like being a feather on the breath of God.
Right.
You have your will, and then there's a higher will, and
Yep.
then if you can watch yourself, you can sort of have this dance going
Yeah.
on, and you can live just on your will, just your will. You can do that. I've done that. And then I remember one night I had it out. Like, I want my piece of the American pie.
Right.
And then I heard this voice say, well, you can choose, but you can't serve two masters.
Yeah. Well, and have you found that not giving into that, but following that has allowed you to do kind of what you were hoping to do anyway?
Yes, and that is what my father said.
Yeah.
I know I've lived my life's purpose.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I know I'm living my life's purpose. There's nothing that can top that.
Yeah.
And there are people who know they're not living their life's purpose. They're living, but they're not living their really inner purpose.
Yeah.
It's a tough. It's first of all, it's to acknowledge it. It's like, I have one.
Yeah.
I'm not just born. No, we're not just born.
Yeah.
We're born with something. We have an inner blueprint.
Yeah.
People call it karma. Whatever you want to call it, there's something in us already. So my daughter was singing in the crib at, a young age. My son had this mind. He was going down some stairs and he tripped and he went all the way back up. He wants to do things right.
Yeah.
And he still is. My daughter still wants to be in the music industry. So the things that we come out of, my mother said I came out of the womb like this.
Yeah.
I was like,
She
no!
knew right away.
And my father named me David, my parents named me David Preston, which means beloved of the church. No, what? Or it means beloved pastor. I didn't know that for many years, right?
So you haven't had a choice this whole time.
You know what? It's like the energy of all of that impinges upon your energy.
Yeah.
But yet, I've done all these other wonderful things.
Right.
I've been all over the world performing, singing, dancing, acting, being a writer. If I were to stop everything, I would be a writer because that's fuels everything else.
Gotcha.
It
Gotcha.
allows everything else
Yeah.
to happen.
If you had, 1, 2, 3 things that you would want people to know, what would they be?
It's never too late to change your life. You can change your life even on the day you pass away. I mean, that's what the whole message is, on that Robert or this,
Yeah. Yeah.
you can change your life at any moment. It can be a decision of the will. So that's what I want people to know. I meet a lot of people who will say things like, oh, I always wanted to be in show business, I was too scared. We can still change. It comes with a cost.
Right.
That
right.
cost is commitment. And that cost may be, it's like the old saying, you can shoot for the stars, you may land on the roof.
Right.
But no one can stop you from going for your dreams. I'm proof. So people told me you can't do all those things. And then I was at an occasion where I spoke, and in my lecture I tap danced. In my lecture I sang. In my lecture I did a poem.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very academic lecture, but I used these arts, and a woman stayed behind, and she came up to me and she said to me, "You're older than you look, aren't you?" And I said, "Why do you say that?" She goes, "Because the things I saw you do, all those things you did well, but it takes time even to do
Right.
one of those things well. So you've been at this a while." And so
Yeah.
we had a nice conversation.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can be all you want to be. And if there are parts of you that have been left behind, you can catch up if you're willing to do the work.
Yeah.
I want people to know that peace is right here, right around them. I want people to know that as long as you're here, there's a reason for you to be here, and you can carry that through, and I can help. And again, this book is a way to help people pay attention to themselves. And so I connect people with their creator, their higher power, in a non-religious way. I'm not a pastor anymore. I've moved into being a writer of spirituality. I've taught at a seminary. I'm a teacher. I
Yeah,
love
yeah,
teaching.
yeah.
Yes, I've preached many sermons. I've counseled many people. At this point in my life, writing and responding to people is really what brings me joy, and I can feel my purpose being lived out. Ooh, so I'm getting goosebumps.
Yeah. Nice.
So that's what I help people find, their own goosebumps. So
Yeah, yeah.
I know there's a place, or they already know. They're just too afraid to
Right.
tackle it. So again,
Right.
it goes back to vision and having a plan and figuring out how to go for it.
Cool.
Yeah.
David, thank you. Thank you for coming in today.
Oh man, my pleasure.
And we could talk like we did the other day. You go,
Yes.
oh my goodness.
Where'd the time
Well,
go?
I would love to have you come back
Well, thank you.
and talk about some of your other accomplishments, because this journey has been all over the place. Even though it's been going in one direction, it's you've done a lot of things. So
Yeah.
please come back.
Thank you,
and
Michael.
do another one.
Appreciate
That'd be
it.
great. So, folks, stick around. We're going to be playing some of David's music during the closing credits. We'll let you know how you can get a hold of his books, how you can get a hold of him. And as always, like, share, please subscribe, please show your support for these artists. I'm Michael Hartsock. Thank you for watching Future Artist Records Presents.